Okay, Reasonable Doubt, Season 3, Episode 9. We getting somewhere, finally, right? Do y'all think Kristen killed Wendy? Like, is that the answer that we've all been waiting for? But why would they end it off like that? As soon as Daniel asks Kristen, did you kill Wendy? It cuts off and leaves us on that cliffhanger. Oh my God. But let me tell you, this episode was really good. The writers are doing such a good job at playing mental ping pong with us, right? I don't know how to articulate it quite right, but what do you call a writing style where they just keep just switching and baiting on us, right? Or is it bait and switch, right? They keep baiting and switching up on us, right? But again, nonetheless, episode 9 is good. We almost there. We almost know who killed Wendy. But before I get into my recap, let me introduce myself. My name is Brandy, and I realize that you could be on any channel in the world, but you're right here with me, and I really do appreciate that. So please go ahead and like this video. It really does help the channel out, and I greatly appreciate it. And also subscribe to the channel if you do enjoy watching TV show reviews and also movie reviews. So episode 9 kicks off with us seeing Jax in bed with her husband, Lewis. And Jax is tossing and turning, and she's conflicted and disturbed and haunted by the notion that Ozzie may have killed Wendy. She's even having a flashback of when she spoke to Ozzie's mom, Rosie, and Rosie disclosed to Jax that she thinks that Ozzie may have been the one to murk Wendy. Jax and Lewis start making love so she could fall back to sleep. And we also see Ozzie calls over a young lady, and they start getting it in too. So both of these scenes are running in parallel to each other. And all season long, we have seen cross cuts between Jax and Ozzie, right? So I think the writers are just trying to tell us how similar that Jax and Ozzie are. And I'm really hoping that Jax does not get let down at the end of this season, because she really believes in Ozzie, and you could tell that she is really rooting for him. Now, I will say this. I do think Ozzie is going to get off. I think he's going to be not guilty, but I'm not sure if she's going to be disappointed if she finds out that Ozzie did, in fact, have something to do with Wendy's murder. Now we jump to the next morning, and we see Jax entering her office, and Jax is looking gorgeous. She has her arms out, shoulders out, and Jax is ripped. She sees Tommy near the elevator talking to the partners, Vince and Steven, and they play the perfect song at this moment. They play Cardi B, Enough. My ops linking up. I'm like, what in the because that's exactly what she saw, her ops linking up. And Tommy, we're gonna get to Tommy, but Tommy, again, in this storyline on this episode was a little bit ping-pongy. I'm like, is Tommy a real one or not? Is Tommy playing the game? But we're going to get to that in a minute. Jax is telling her team that Rosie's testimony did exactly what they needed it to do. It swayed the jurors in Ozzie's favor, but now she wants to seal the deal, and she's considering putting Ozzie on the stand, and she asked for their opinions. She asked Daniel, and Daniel is so distracted because in the first half of this episode, he keeps trying to reach Kristen. He's texting her, calling her, and she's not responding to him. And Tommy, he is not on board with putting Ozzie on the stand, but Crystal, Jax's assistant, is, and she was such a real one in this episode, and she always is. She is one of my favorite characters on this show, along with Daniel. And Crystal tells Jax, like, listen, if you think Ozzie need to take the stand, then he need to take the stand. You need to convince him that if he doesn't, that it's a great chance that he's gonna go to jail. Now we see Jax and Tommy over at Ozzie's trying to convince him that he needs to, in fact, take the stand. And they are telling him basically, like, this is our last resort. Like, if we don't do this just to cement your innocence in the jury's eyes, then you may go to jail. And Jax says to him, you are so charming. You're a star. And plus you have your innocence. But Ozzie hesitates, and he's like, but what if I killed Wendy? And he goes on to say how he's been having these weird dreams that he did, in fact, have something to do with Wendy's murder. But Jax goes straight for the jugular. She's like, listen, pretty much, I don't give a damn about these dreams that you are having, that you could have killed Wendy. You need to take that up with Dr. Owens. Our job right here is to get you off. Like, basically, fuck out of here with them dreams you have, Ozzie. Like, deal with your therapist with that. So take a quick break. Go to the bathroom and get yourself some water, and now we're going to prep for trial. And now we see Ozzie having a bunch of flashbacks. The first flashback we see is Ozzie at the veterinarian's office with his mom, Rosie. And apparently the dog's name is Old Dog, like Old Dog from Menace to Society. I thought that was cute. But they're at the vet, and the dog has been poisoned. Apparently the dog ate too much chocolate, and he's not well. The veterinarian asks if he could speak to Rosie alone, so Ozzie leaves the room. He walks right outside of the doctor's office, and the vet tells him, listen, have either of your children been tested for any mental disorders? Because I really think with the amount of chocolate that the dog ingested that somebody could have did this intentionally. And children who hurt animals tend to grow up and hurt people. And Rosie checked the veterinarian right away. Like, listen, stay in your lane. Focus on animals. Don't focus on the people, right? And she got up and she stepped. But salute to that veterinarian for trying to tell Rosie and put her up on game. Because listen, it really do be kids out here hurting animals and they grow up to be serial killers. Meanwhile, Ozzie was right outside of the vet's office and he overheard everything. And it has been haunting him for so many years that his mom, Rosie, may have thought that he killed their dog, Old Dog. And the second flashback we see from Ozzie is a flashback to him and Monica. Monica is in like his movie or TV show trailer. She's helping him out. And she comes on to him again, and he's like, listen, I don't want to do that with you anymore. And she says something to the effect of, oh, it's okay if you're gay. She's basically gaslighting him. Like, if you don't want me, if you don't want this, then that must mean you're gay. And I'm like, that is so traumatic for a young 14 or 15-year-old boy to hear this. Because, again, this was back in 2015. But she leaves out the trailer, but Ozzie is left with an erection, and he starts to take care of himself. But then a production assistant just bursts into the trailer without properly knocking and waiting for Ozzie to answer. So Ozzie flips out. He grabs like a trophy and he hurls it at the PA, but his mom, Rosie, comes in right on time before anything else can occur. So again, the writers are just showing us that, listen, Rosie is side-eyeing Ozzie, right? She sees that he may have tried to poison the dog. Now we see him attacking the PA. Now we're at Lewis's office and he calls in the coder, Sam, to fire him. He tells him that he hasn't been turning in his deliverables on time, and when he does turn them in, that they're inaccurate. And Sam just asks Lewis right there, like, well, did you tell anybody about this? And Lewis is like, listen, I don't need to tell anybody that I'm firing you. You report directly to me. And Sam is like, listen, man, just give me a second chance, man. My girlfriend is pregnant. I didn't want to tell you or anybody else until she got to the second trimester because we had a few miscarriages before. And I'm in my head like, does he know about Lewis's situation that Lewis just lost his baby with the side chick? But anyway, he runs that game on Lewis, and Lewis falls for the okie doke. And I was so mad at Lewis. Like, Lewis, you know that Sam got to go. Sam keep effing up, and it's going to cause you your job. Then Lewis goes home, and Jax is venting to him about work and about Bill, how she wants to put Ozzie on the stand, but Bill is very reluctant. And Lewis got the nerve to say, oh, Bill isn't sounding like billable Bill. He's sounding like billable B-I-T-C-H. And I'm like, Lewis, you got some nerve calling another man a B-I-T-C-H with the way that you be acting out here. But I don't know. This season, they are just trying to show us through and through that Lewis is a weak man. And I don't like that narrative for him. The next day, we see Ozzie at a therapy session with Dr. Autumn. And we find out that Ozzie was previously diagnosed with conduct disorder, but his parents never told him about it. They just kept him medicated. And listen, his parents are so effed up on every single level. It is so messed up not to tell your child about a certain diagnosis that can affect their behavior. If your kid is going through something that affects the way they behave in certain scenarios, they need to know that it's a reason behind that. All this time, Ozzie is just thinking he's crazy, but there is a reason why he acts the way he does. But a diagnosis can explain away so many of Ozzie's choices. Also in this therapy session, Ozzie discloses to Dr. Autumn that his mom lost faith in him once she thought that he killed the family dog. And Dr. Autumn is like, well, did you kill the family dog? He cannot even remember if he poisoned the dog or not. But let me tell you, the actor that is playing Ozzie is doing such a great job. Like, his acting skills are top tier, and he's easy on the eyes. I really need to see him in some more roles. Now we jump to Dr. Autumn taking a stand, and her testimony really works in Ozzie's favor. She talks about how Ozzie shows signs of arrested development, meaning that, yes, he's a 25-year-old grown man, but mentally, he's at a level of a 13 or 14-year-old boy, and this was caused by him having severe childhood trauma. She goes on to talk about his conduct disorder and how that disorder causes him to have outbursts. And the jury really needed to hear that information because on the night of Wendy's murder, remember, they saw the video of Ozzie flipping out on Wendy, and he seemed to be very impulsive and irrational. So the jury just needed a reasoning behind that outburst. But the prosecutor prosecutor, when he approached Dr. Autumn, he was trying to flip everything she said on its head. Like, he's like, okay, because he has conduct disorder, he killed Wendy. Okay, because he has arrested development, he killed Wendy. In a nutshell, he was just trying to flip everything Dr. Autumn said into a negative, but it really didn't work, because we find out in the next scene when Jax is talking to Bill at the office that their plan to put Dr. Autumn on the stand worked. And now the jury is really swaying in Ozzie's favor. However, they still want to put him on the stand because they want to cement his innocence in the jurors' eyes. So they're thinking of an angle. Like, Jax is like, listen, she's talking out loud to Bill, and she's like, listen, Ozzie, he never went to the grocery store by himself. He doesn't wash his own clothes. He doesn't stock his refrigerator. And then Crystal walks in. She was just coming to drop off some paperwork. And she was like, yeah, I always thought that Ozzie was just too dumb to commit this crime. And Jax, she had an epiphany. She's like, aha, okay, that's the angle we're going to take. Yes, Ozzie is too dumb to commit such a sophisticated crime. Whoever did this had to be smart enough to wipe down the gun, get rid of all of the fingerprints, clean up the crime scene, and Ozzie does not have that in him. But Bill is not in alignment with Jax to put Ozzie on that stand. And she confronts him right then and there like, listen, what is your problem with me? Every time I have a theory, every time I have an idea, you are such a contrarian. Like, what's up? And he's like, no, I just don't think that we should put Ozzie on the stand. He thinks he's guilty. He doesn't seem that confident. I just think it's a bad idea. And she's like, no, forget about Ozzie for now. What is your problem with me? And Bill is like, listen, I'm putting my entire career on the line for your whimsical ideas. And Jax is like, wait, hold up. What does the outcome of this trial have to do with your entire career? Did the partners promise you something? Did they say that if we win this case, that you will become partner? And she is pressing him for information. And he comes clean that is the case. That if they win the case, that he might become partner. And Jax is pressing Bill. She's pressing him. She even calls him belligerent Bill. And she says, which one of the partners put you up to this? Which one? Steve or Vince? And he confesses both of them. And she's like, wait, so let me get this right. I win the case and then you get promoted? Well, what's in it for me then? And then she says, do I get to tell them that you're divorcing your wife and that you're effing my black friends? So she pulled his card that she knows about Sally. Because that doesn't actually paint the picture of him being a very stable partner if he has all of this personal drama going on. And then Jax puts the focus back on Ozzie. Like, listen, we are too deep in this to be fighting right now. I need to know if you with me or against me. And Bill says right there that he is with her. And now we see Chelsea, Jax's sister, approaching Lewis after he's leaving work in the dark parking lot. And just poor Lewis. Lewis is always getting caught up in the mix in the middle of some craps. And she says, listen, I'm Chelsea. I'm Jax's sister. I'm just here to warn you about Eddie. Like, Eddie is not who he says he is. My mom passed away a few years ago and he was there up until that point. And in a roundabout way, I feel like she was trying to say that Eddie was a scammer and that Lewis should connect her with Jax so she could tell Jax herself why Eddie should not be in her life. And Lewis, he hears her out, but we don't see on this episode that Lewis immediately tells Jax what happened. And I mean, I guess it's rightfully so, because Jax said that she don't really want to deal with no issues with her sister at this point. Now, let's talk about Daniel. I was worried about Daniel a little bit in this episode. I'm still scared that Daniel is going to get murked, and I'm hoping that, Jax, it looks like when she found the body in the trailer, like when she was screaming over a body, we're thinking that it could be Eddie or Mama Lou, but now I'm like, could it be Daniel by any chance? Because Daniel is in a dangerous situation at the end of this episode. But before I jump the gun on that, Daniel, he arrives home and he sees a letter written from Kristen, basically breaking up with him. In the letter, Kristen claims that a lot has happened within her family and hopefully the truth will come out someday. And she asks him to forgive her at the end. And then Daniel, he immediately tries to go find her. But the scene cuts to Kristen and we see Kristen on a dark road. She gets out of her car and she takes out her SIM card and she throws it in the woods. So wherever Kristen is going, she does not want to be found. The next day we see Ozzie taking a stand and his dad calls him to the side like, listen, your mom and Kristen, they weren't able to be here. But don't worry about that. I'm here. And at this point, I'm starting to think that the dad is off of the suspect list. Like, guys, what do you think? Comment down below. Is the dad completely off the suspect list? To me, at this point, the dad is looking like he's not involved in Wendy's murder. But with this show, you never know. And at this point, Ozzie has another flashback to 2015 and he's just waking up in the morning and he's asking his mom for some eggs and something else. And she's like, listen, I can't give you eggs and toast because you can't have any carbs right now. And on his plate, he has 3 Adderall pills. And he's like, Mom, why are you giving me 3 pills? I usually only take 2. And that's a lot of Adderall pills, period, right? But she's like, listen, I need you sharp today. We got to meet with the network. You got a long working day. And I just feel so sad for Ozzie. Like 3 pills? Like all he wanted is breakfast from his mama, but she just feeding him 3 pills. But in this flashback, before Rosie turns to walk away from his room, he says to her, like, listen, Mom, I didn't do what you think I did. Basically, like, I didn't poison Old Dog. And in that moment, she claimed to believe him, but her body language said otherwise. And again, just horrible parenting all around on this show. I felt like she should have sat down with her baby boy right then and, had a heart-to-heart discussion with him to find out what's going on with him mentally. Now, with Ozzie on the stand, Jax was able to successfully prove that Ozzie is incapable of doing basic tasks, let alone murdering Wendy in such a sophisticated fashion. She asked Ozzie very basic questions like, what's the combination to the gun safe at the cabin? He doesn't know the combination to the safe. She asked Ozzie, where did he get the gun from? He said, I don't know, from the gun store. Somebody got it for me. And then she asked Ozzie, where did you get the rope from? The rope that was used to kill Wendy. And he's like, the rope store. Like, what's the rope store? She just proves her point to a T right there because the jury actually got a chuckle out of that. Like, yo, nobody says the rope store. So it just shows that Ozzie is just not normal. He also admitted that he was high on the night of Wendy's murder and that he felt guilty. And when he used that word guilty, Jax's face was like, she was flabbergasted, right? But he was like, I felt guilty because I started using again and I feel like I betrayed Wendy's trust. So the prosecutor now, he goes up to question Ozzie and he just fumbles. He fumbles so bad. He did a horrible job. He's trying to prove that Ozzie is able to function. So he mentions that Ozzie does some improv acting work as well, where he has to think on his feet and be sharp. And he also goes on to ask Ozzie, like, listen, if you were high that night, is it possible that Alex did take you to the cabin? Like he mentioned that he did? And he's like, no, it's no way that Alex took me to the cabin. Alex hasn't been to that cabin in forever. And the prosecutor is like, well, wouldn't you have been able to give him directions or the address? And Ozzie is just really, really quiet. And he's looking down, not giving the prosecutor any eye contact. And then after a long pregnant pause, Ozzie says in a very childlike voice, he says, I don't even know the address to the cabin. I don't even know how to get there. Again, just proving the point that Ozzie is incapable of doing basic tasks. And you can see right there that the jury was so like, this boy did not kill Wendy. I just wanted to hug Ozzie at this point. I really did. Again, the actor that is playing Ozzie is killing it in this show. Even the actor that played young Ozzie too. I think that little boy is on Divorced Sisters, that Tyler Perry show too. But anyway, Ozzie, chef's kiss to that actor. Now, after the hearing, Bill, Vince, and Steven, they go to grab some drinks, and the partners are upset with Bill, like, listen, why didn't you tell us that Ozzie was going to be taking a stand? And Bill is like, listen, Jax is first chair. She is responsible for strategy, and that was all of her idea. And the partners are like, do you not know what's at stake? And Bill, you can see in his eyes that his frustration is mounting at this point, and he is really turning into Tommy. He about to cancel Christmas on them. And Bill, he flips the script on them. Like, he really turns into Tommy at this moment. He's like, listen, I could go and tell Jax about the acquisition and mess up everything, right? Like, you do not want to be on my bad side. He reveals that he's going through a divorce, and he says, listen, if you want me to help you, then help me help you. And we don't know what that means in that moment, but in the next scene, we see the partners going into Jax's office. Jax is in the office late at night working on her closing remarks, and they walk in and they say, listen, we really think that you should let Bill do the closing remarks for the trial. Yo, and Jax ate them alive. I mean, she was spitting bars at this point. She's like, listen, I brought the case this far. There wouldn't be any case if it wasn't for me. Now you want me to give all of the credit to Bill? Listen, you don't have to give me the credit, but you will give me my respect. She says, listen, all I do is win and make this company money, and I got receipts for days. And as the partners are walking out of her office with their head hanging down like little kids that just got chastised, she says to them, like, listen, tell Bill, I ain't even mad at him. If I was in his position, I might have did the same thing. And it was in that moment where I'm like, wait a minute, like Bill just might have did something right there. He sent them partners on a dummy mission to go talk to Jax. He knew that Jax would clock it right away. And in that moment, I'm thinking, wait a minute now. I think Bill is playing chess and not checkers. I think that Bill might have sent them partners in there intentionally. I don't think think that Bill necessarily wanted to do the closing remarks. I think he just set a trap for them to fall into. So now Jax is looking at him like, okay, now we might be on the same page, because remember in their last argument, Jax was like, listen, you know, if you're with me, if you're on my side, you need to prove it to me. So now I'm thinking, is this his way of proving it to her? Although it's a very roundabout, convoluted way, but we know this is how the writers of Reasonable Doubt are. I'm still on the fence whether Bill is a real one or not. And now we see Jax giving her closing remarks the next day, and she does a phenomenal job. She basically just says, listen, if you have any doubts in your mind, you cannot convict Ozzie of second-degree murder. We see that the prosecution did not do a thorough investigation. We know that there's no evidence. There's no fingerprints on the gun. And she just goes on to cast further reasonable doubt on the jury. Meanwhile, Bill is there and he's just looking at her in awe. You could tell that Bill respects Jax. And again, that's why I'm just so on the fence whether Bill is going to be Team Jax or is he going to be an op. But before I go on real quick, guys, for those of you who do love Tommy, the real Tommy from Power, I will be reviewing for. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. And now we see Rosie in Ozzie's room, and she looks under the bed and she sees one singular box under the bed. And my thought in this moment was, who planted that box there? Now, all of a sudden, Ozzie has one random box under his bed. And the box, let me tell you what was in the box. It was the dog leash. It was Old Dog's dog leash. The dog that passed away. And it was a letter that Ozzie wrote that said, Old Dog, nobody loved me the way that you loved me. I miss you. And it was from 2015. But I'm in my head like, that box could have been randomly planted there by Ozzie. Because again, I don't know, guys. I'm so torn. At this point, I have no idea who killed Wendy. But I did think it was a little random that that box was under there. And Rosie, she feels bad. She goes to Ozzie's house and she tells him like, listen, you know, I believe you. I believe you about everything. I believe you didn't kill Wendy. I believe you didn't hurt Old Dog. And they hug and they have a very emotional moment. Now, fast forward a bit and we see Kristen at the cabin. I guess that's where she was going, where she threw her SIM card away, that she didn't want anybody to know that she was going there. But anyway, she's on the porch. It looks like she's looking at video of the trial and she has a little blicky right there. So it looks like she's sad, emotional, and she's about to unalive herself. So Daniel pops up on her. He approaches her like, Kristen, what's going on? Like, where have you been? What's going on? And she confesses to him like, listen, I've done some awful things in the past, but I have always been in my brother's shadow. My mom and dad, they looked at him like he was the sun and the moon and that he could do no wrong. And she essentially, in a roundabout way, again, admits that she poisoned the dog. And then Daniel asks her like, Kristen, did you kill Wendy? And then it cuts. We're left with that cliffhanger right then and there. And in my head, I'm like, again, have no idea who killed Wendy, but I do think that if it was Kristen, they should have just let us see that right then and there on this episode, because the suspense is killing me. And at this point, I'm like, was it the sister? Like, I don't know. She's always been on my suspect list, along with Kash Doll, Dr. Gardner, the mom, the dad. Everybody was on the list, even Ozzie. Ozzie's still on the list. But at this point, I'm still not 100% convinced that it was Kristen. From the very first episode, everybody thought it was Kristen. Kristen was always the obvious choice. And I don't want it to be an obvious choice. I want to have a juicy plot twist at the end of the season. So I am hoping that it was not Kristen that killed Wendy, but it's definitely looking like it was her. But it could still be Ozzie as well. But again, who knows? We are going to find out next episode, or will we? What if we don't find out, guys? What if they leave us on a cliffhanger and we don't find out anything? What if we just find out that Ozzie is going to be found not guilty and then we don't actually find out who the killer is? That would really suck. But I don't think they would do us like that. But anyway, guys, if you made it this far in the video, make sure you like the video, turn on your notifications. Again, I will be reviewing Power Force. I'm reviewing All's Fair, that new Kim Kardashian and Niecy Nash show. And also, I don't know, I might be able to hop on Bel Air once Reasonable Doubt ends next week. Not sure, but comment down below if you can and let me know what shows you are all watching. Love you. See you next time. Peace.